Welcome to the Winners Find a Way show and podcast with your host, Trent M Clark, 3-time World Series coach, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, having started 12 companies, coach to the 1%, and an international speaker. This show is going to be your go-to podcast for facing adversity, being inspired, and overcoming obstacles, all from the best in the world, business, sports, and leadership. Hate the crappy ingredients in many beverages and energy drinks? Rebellious Infusions are the go-to functional beverage. They have 5 or fewer plant-based organic ingredients, no sugar, no calories, loaded with antioxidants to boost your immune system, and L-theanine for brain health. Rebellious Infusions are available at drinkrebellious.com. Rethink your drink. For 10% off of your next purchase, use the code 99999.
I think our limiting belief system or our patterns that kind of those things that our expectations in. I think, like I said, I've never been the victim, and I've always seen people for what they are and not what I want them to be. And I will say, I was mad. I was angry as a child when all that was going on with my dad. I didn't know where that was coming from at the time. And you have to move through the process, I think, to get to the other side and see the beauty in it. But we're not born with a manual of how to be or how to raise children or whatnot. I always tell my kids, I'm not perfect. I don't expect you to be perfect. I love you as you are. And I say that a lot to them because they are around those moms that are there at everything, and that's their life. Yep. And I had to balance mine out with my kids and the company, and I had a hard time with being married because as the company grew, I had to manage that as well. I don't know. I think everybody moves at their own journey and their own pace. And I'm at peace. I really am at peace where I am and what I've done. And I think that I've had some good mentors along the way, and I've evicted the crazy roommates in my head that wasn't great, or called me they're calling me dumbass. What are you doing that for? I think that you really have to sit with yourself and be happy with who you are. And when you come to that place where you're happy with just being, I think that's where it has to come within.
Did you take that lesson like from your basketball coach and your librarian that took you in? Did you take that lesson and really apply that with your girls? Like, you're a good kid, like pump them through, like, it's puppy dog training to me, right? You just catch them doing good, and they're like, oh, hey, I'll keep doing it, right? Like, was that a strength for you?
I encourage them. I'm probably a little critical, like moms are. I'm like, they'll walk out of their room. They'll walk out of their room. They got hoochie mama going on up here and hoochie mama going down below. I'm like, I said, you can't be hoochie mommy on up and top and bottom. Yeah. So I try to make, and I've always let them have a little freedom, because I think that when you pull in the kids and you don't let them be who they are, they will rebel hard. I was really one of those that would I was told I couldn't do things all the time being a girl, and I didn't like that. I was told I had. Let's talk
about that for a second. I was told I couldn't do a lot of things too, right? And mine was about size. It wasn't because I was a boy or a girl. It was because I'm not big enough, or I'm not tall enough, or I'm not strong enough. And I remember a day in my life where that voice was creeping in, like, I'm not enough. And that changed for me with one conversation. How did that change for you that, hey, people telling, I had a chip, man. Like, I had a chip, like, going, oh, you don't think I can? Like, oh, I'll show you. Like, I don't ever recall ever going back to somebody and going, hey, remember when you said I couldn't? I just showed them something different.
I was the same way. I think it started in church. So like my mom's side were Baptist, my dad's side were Methodist. So I go to different churches and I was like, why are the rules different here? And why are the rules different here? So one church I had to wear a dress. I couldn't wear pants, was kind of the rule. Or at least it was on that's how the family was said. And then the other one was like, you can wear shorts. You can I like this one. They're not putting like strict rules on, and you can learn the fundamentality of it. That was probably and then also being a girl, boys would always say, you can't do this. And I would always beat their butts in basketball, and I was the fastest girl. I remember in 3rd grade, we had a field day, and I got first place in 50-yard dash, 100-yard dash, all that. And the guys were just hated me because I was beating them. I got a funny message on Facebook, and my friend Jason, this is 30 years later, he goes, only thing I remember really about you, Tonya, is I went home and I was showing my ribbons to my dad. And he's like, why'd you get second place here, son? He goes, I had to tell him a girl beat me. And he's like, I'm training my kids to beat your kids. And yard dad, it was kind of funny, but
it's so funny. Like, you do recognize, like, especially when we're young, right, that physicality there's really very little difference. In fact, there's that era actually about, kind of that 5th to 7th era where like the females have matured. Actually, physically, they may be better and stronger, right? And they're certainly smarter at that level. And then, but it's weird how it transpires. But I want to pivot to this. What do you think the superpower for you that separates you from others, catapults you to the 1%?
I can see patterns in people. I understand what their underlying motivation is, and I care. I'm responsible and I care. And I think that I see patterns in what gets in people's way. And I ask that to myself all the time. I'm like, what is getting in my way right now to get what I want? What is getting in my way right now? Where am I not balanced? What am I not seeing? And then I'll seek out someone and go, okay, give me some feedback. Tell me, what I can't see in myself. I think that's where it all lies out. I also plan. I can design in my head what I want. I can see. The only time in my life that I had a hard time was when I was going to divorce. I couldn't really, everything was fuzzy and I couldn't see because I had designed this whole life around my family, a business, and my husband, and all of that just crumbled when I couldn't make things work out. And I'm not a quitter. And I think that was a negative for me at that point because I wouldn't give it up.
That's a good one. It's a hard one, right? Like that never say die in anything, and not being able to see that. And I can see that about a family and saying, hey, this is the vision. And now the emotions, everything's so strong. I need to pivot or I need to shift to a new vision. And I can't get my mind around it because this one's so strong. I can't go to another one because like, no, I can't give up on this one yet. Right. And so like when you talk about, what's in my way, right? You identify that. Then what do you do with it?
I start making a plan to be better. Do
you get it out of the way right away?
Find a way. I mean, it depends on where you are. I mean, it's like if you're going through an emotional time in your emotions will drain your body. A lot of people don't see this because I worked as a hygienist for many years, and as an entrepreneur, and I could see people that came in when they were emotionally worn out. It would be psychosomatic. It would be in their bodies. That's how disease starts too. And I believe you have to be healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I try to look at those buckets and go, okay, where am I falling short, or where do I need to adjust? And balance is always a moving target, always a moving target. And you can never be 100% balanced. You can put processes in to help balance. Like an example, being a mom and working as a hygienist and building a company, I had to start hiring people to come in, do my laundry, help me maybe prepare meals as things ramped up with the business, with having twins. I gave birth in 2003. I founded the company in 2000. I was practicing dental hygiene 2 days a week when I had the twins. And then I ramped it back up because my boss was like, I need you 4 days a week. And so I said yes, which I shouldn't have. Kids were 3 they were going to preschool at that point. I built a house at the same time. I was nuts. So, it's like you have to balance. So I had to pull in more help. My husband was like, at the time, he was like, I don't like these people in my house. He wanted me to do everything. And I was like, I can't do everything. I need help. Yeah. And I was struggling with all that, being a new mom, being responsible wife, and trying to manage the logistics.
And so here's another thing that a lot of people don't know about you is you built a multi-million-dollar brand out of your home. Like you have an office that you've established in your walkout level, right? And it is the corporate HQ of your brand. And we know it takes a village, right, on a child, but like when you surround yourself, let's talk about the team. Let's talk about the team you bring into you. These people became very important for you when you have all this going. I'm trying to be a wife. I'm trying to be a good employee. I'm trying to be a good business owner. I'm trying to be a good boss. I'm trying to be a good mom. Like, so, like, whoo, if you saw my post on Mother's Day, like I posted my Mother's Day little meme about, hey, I hired some people to do your job today. And there's like, 47 people standing in the front lawn, right? Doing mom's job for today. So when you talk about that, talk about the people and how you bring them in, how you choose them, how you manage them.
Well, let me give you a little background of the company. I was seeing hygiene patients, and then the kids were, I don't know what exactly age they were, 7, 8. I'd hit $1 million in sales, and I just didn't hire anybody until I hit $1 million in sales. It was crazy. I don't know why I just didn't do it. I was juggling a lot, and I hired my first employee. She came to me and it's like, I need a job. Her husband and her were getting divorced, and she had been a stay-at-home mom. And I said, well, you're gonna have to do everything. Like, I'll give you a job, but you're gonna wear lots of hats. And she's like, I'll do it. So I hired her, and then I hired Kyle. And Kyle I knew for, I've known him now for almost 30 years, and he's been in my back. Like, he's been so good. He has
still
my
with
back.
the company.
Huh? He's still with
the company.
He's been with me almost 10 years, and he has my back on everything. And he's a good team player. I call him my work husband. I've hired people that they're athletes. I think athletes are winners in a lot of ways. They want to win. Everybody on my team wants to win. I usually have people take a DISC personality assessment, so I know how to communicate with them. And I go deeper, like if I'm doing interviews to hire now. I look at a TTI test and look at what their strengths and their weaknesses are, and where I utilize those the best so that we can win. And I look at, what else do I look at? I look at a facet of things and people, but usually if they want to win, their personality, if they're introverted, extroverted, they have a balance of the DISC, where if you're high D, sometimes high Ds can't see themselves.
Right.
But if they have a balance, they have D and I, and then their lower S or C, you've got a little bit more of a balance. I use that with my company in Dental Post. I put DISC in there, where if you're a D doctor, a high D doctor, and you hire a high D hygienist, you're going to clash. And somebody's got to be the boss, or there has to be give and take. So I use that in my hiring. And I learned that one of my first jobs, where they gave us personality assessments.
Sure.
And then I saw it in patients. I could see the patterns in the patients, and I could see oldest child, middle child, youngest child patterns, and that's not 100%, but like your oldest child is usually they want information quick. Your middle child is pretty well balanced most of the time. They can see both sides of the coin. They're good negotiators. And then you've got youngest are usually the salesperson of the team. So those are the things I look at when hiring. So a lot of people,
interesting, right? I mean, you just brought up a couple of things. So DISC, for people who don't know, is a personality assessment.
Yes.
And we use DISC at Leadership in great depth, right? Because we are partners with Wiley. I am a certified DISC, facilitator, and we do DISC for sales, DISC for marketing, DISC for leaders. We do it all, right?
It's simple too. Like
it's very simple.
I teach it as well, and
patterns, right?
Yeah. Your D is your dominant, results-driven person. Yep. Your I's are your salespeople. They're your cheerleaders, your influencers. I'm an ID.
Me too.
Your S's are your support people. They're sometimes introverted.
Your listeners.
Yes. And then your C's are your analytical people. They're your CPAs, your programmers.
Conscientiousness is what they are. They're very, very detailed and want to be right. They're very methodical.
Yes.
That's good. I think you also mentioned like the birth order is kind of important, like, right? Because you recognize patterns in birth order. And then you talked about athletes. I interviewed a good friend of mine, former president of Amway North America, and he only, he hires athletes, right? And he talked about that as being so important. Jim is his name. He's a former athlete at Grand Valley State, played football there. Athletes know what hard work is, right? Like they know, hey, like, you earn it. Like you got to do the work and you got to balance time. Time management becomes so important for athletes because your time is not your own. And so if you want any of your time your own, you better learn how to manage it, right? So, and the competitiveness side. So 3 huge kind of things to really, and what I like to talk about here, Tonya, is, to get a great team, for me, I think it's really important to know what motivates people, what drives them, how they learn, what do they want, what's their end game, like where do they want to end up on the journey? Do they want to be the COO? Do they want to own their own brand? Do they just want to, hey, I need to work 6 hours and I got big responsibilities outside of here. This helps me get there, and this is just a vehicle, and that's okay too, right? Like, and so you put a lot of time and effort into getting the right people on your team, and then knowing, probably one of the things that's really important to me is knowing how others learn, right? And you're finding that through the DISC and some other tools. Is that fair?
Yes. And there's also core values in there. And also I tie what their wishes are, the employees' wishes are, to the company. So if I have them list out, like, what are 3 things that you'd want to do? You want to go to the Braves game? Do you want to go to the World Series? What is it that you tie what can my company help achieve with them? And what can they help achieve the goals, your common goals together. So I believe that you have to tie things like that and understand what is important to your employees.
Well, I love that. I mean, I think you're going to the World Series, you're speaking my language, Tonya. So and I think that's so important. I was labeled a dream maker as a young guy, right? Because I'm always asking people, what are you dreaming about? Well, I'm dreaming about this. Okay, what are you doing now to go for it? What are the action steps? Let's just back into it. Like, we know where it's at. And this is the beautiful thing about dreams. We usually dream about something that somebody's already accomplished, which means it's been done, right? So someone did it. There's a roadmap. There's already been a created roadmap. Let's find the roadmap that can work for you to get you to that dream. And, my story of a dream maker was, in professional baseball, right? I hit the World Series at 25 years old for my first one. And, it was just 12 years before that, I was running around my lawn going, bottom of the 7th game, 7 World Series, Clark's at bat. We're playing wiffle ball in the backyard, right? And we're just creating that scenario of the dream. And then I look up and I have this recognition, like, oh my gosh, everybody's actually living their dream, and they're in it. And so many people say, oh, this is what I'm dreaming about. But hey, are you living that? Are you out there actually living the dream? I hear people say it all the time. Hey, how you doing? Living the dream. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not living the dream. I know you're not. So I think that's a really cool challenge. Let's come back to the folks real quick, because I want to wrap. But if you knew somebody was going through something very challenging right now, a lot of that's going on, right, Tonya? I mean, we've got COVID, we got the pandemic. There's been just a lot of just breakdown of, I feel like, the family system, about, schools, and we're doing it different and everyone's had to adapt. Someone's going through something. What would be one belief, value, or action that you would recommend they take right now in this journey as things get hard to get back on their road to the direction they want to go?
I think people let things irritate them more than they should. And I think I always ask, does it really matter? Is this going to matter? My grandmother used to say, is that going to matter? It's like the toilet paper. If it's over or under, does it really freaking matter? It gets the job done, right?
Yes, it's got to be over, but that's fine.
I mean, really, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's also, you can be right or you can be married, or you can be right.
Yeah, that's a great quote. I'm going to use that one. You can be right.
You can be right.
You can be married. Oh, that's good.
So, I mean, really, the little things is it worth it? Is it worth being miserable? Is it worth the fight? Is it worth, I think the people that really can move through, I've been through a lot my whole life. And it's you look at things and the little things that people grab onto. I don't know. It's like Tony Robbins. Where does your need come from? I think that's so important to understand. Does your need come from power? Does it come from love or community? Does it come from being significant? Do you have to wear that watch to look important, or does it really matter? Money is.
I think, and that DISC really is important, because that a lot of times that will define what people's need are, right? Like when you talk about, that we talked about that C category, that conscience, that engineering, that CPA background, that someone who's very good with analytics and data, there is a significant desire to be right.
Yes.
And it's a need. I need to be right. And they're willing to work very diligently to prepare to be right.
So I'm on the dating app right now. And I was looking through the dating app, and I've gone through several.
Don't tell people what app that is. You might get bombarded.
So, and I noticed patterns in looking at people put what they do for a living. And there's a lot of analysts on there. There's a lot of computer programmers. There's a lot of these data people on there. And it's like, again, you can be right or you can be married.
That's a hard one, right? We have to recognize, I mean, that's one thing that DISC is really good about is actually creating an understanding of myself and the way I am. Like, oh, other people aren't like me and they don't see it the same. And that's okay, right? Like, that's really okay. So I love it. Let's wrap with a couple things. I mean, I want you to think a little bit about the quote. You know, is there a go-to verse that you go to when things aren't great? Is there a go-to verse for you, like that levels you, that gets you back in, that just says, hey, this grounds me, gets me back to where my balance point should be?
It's my will to succeed is greater than my fear.
Love that. See, winners find a way. As I'm telling you right now. I had this quote today thinking about our time together, and I pulled something from Jim Collins. We succeed at our very best only when we help others succeed at theirs. So I love that. I know that about you. And so I just saw that and I was like, oh, hey, listen, that is Tonya Lanthier right there. So a couple of things. The last thing I want to do here is, if you had one thing we haven't touched on, and people are going to figure out, like, what do you think the best way to win? What is the best way to win? I mean, we've talked a little bit, just in quick review, we've talked about, hey, dyslexia, ADD, your mother's OCD issues and challenges didn't slow you down from being a lifelong learner. Upper level degrees at MIT, London School of Business. You're a non-traditional learner, but you're a lifelong learner, which I love about you. We talked about pattern recognition. You talked about, establishing your independence and learning the value of encouragement, being told you were a good kid and how important that was. Being able to have that visibility on what's in my way. And then you're just not a quitter. And also thinking about, as people go through, kind of focused on what we do get to control and the things we get hung up on. Hey, does it really matter? From your grandmother. It's does it really matter? Is it worth it? To get bent on that. And then the value of how you look at employees, right? The DISC, the birth order, the athletics, understanding their values, what their drivers are, what their dreams are. I mean, very important. Any other last tip that you think that's just best way to win?
I think create something bigger than yourself.
Love that.
And I think my wealth right now is to be able to do what I want with my time. Mm-hmm. I think time is, you can make more money always, but you can't make more time. I'm very efficient with my time.
I really love that quote, because what I've learned is someone who creates something bigger than themselves, they are winners, and they find a way to grow into it. They find a way to grow and to manage this bigger thing. Like, hey, I don't know how I'm going to manage it. Hey, guess what? That's okay. Like, you can learn. Probably most people aren't so comfortable with this, but a lot of my friends are very comfortable getting in a plane and taking off and going, all right, Tonya, we got to build the landing gear. Like, wait, we have no landing gear? But we got instructions and stuff. Like we're going to be able to figure it out. And we got a lot of fuel. We can fly for a while. But people would be like, oh my gosh, I can't move. I got to stop. We're going to die. The fear of that, as opposed to getting focused on what I can do to resolve that challenge, is a huge one.
I think I was a healthcare professional, but I wanted to add value to people's lives. And then starting Dental Post, I put food on the table. I put a roof over their head. I give them a job. I give them dignity, and where they value themselves. And, I saw a program through EO where a lady comes in and she brings a program into prisoners, and they were developing skills, and they bring their families in, and how proud they were that they had developed the skills to get out of prison and they could get a job. It's a tribute. That gives me happiness there in what I love do every day.
Love it. All right. For everybody, thank you, Tonya, for being here. For everybody else, where can I find you again, Tonya?
Dentalpost.net.
There we go. Dentalpost.net. For me, I am at Trent M Clark or Leadershipity on all the social media handles. You can look for our upcoming book, The Pyramid of Leadership, and you can DM or email me on that assessment, actually, at trent@leadershipity.com. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. We work hard and continue to find the 1%ers and deliver so we can listen on how winners find a way. Rate us 5 stars. Share our episode. We'd love to see you back. Thank you so much for being here on the show today, Tonya. Love seeing you as always.
Hate the crappy ingredients in many beverages and energy drinks? Rebellious Infusions are the go-to functional beverage. They have 5 or fewer plant-based organic ingredients, no sugar, no calories, loaded with antioxidants to boost your immune system, and L-theanine for brain health. Rebellious Infusions are available at drinkrebellious.com. Rethink your drink. For 10% off of your next purchase, use the code 99999. If you are a business or organization leader and want expert advice, coaching, and guidance to help you build your team to be the best, then email Trent directly at trent@leadershipity.com or connect with him at Trent M Clark on LinkedIn.